Welcome back to another episode of Insect Roulette, where we take a look at an insectoid species from Star Wars and determine if they're surprisingly delightful or decidedly menacing. With contenders like the colicoids and the verpine, there are plenty of options for both sides. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the Yam'rii, who, spoiler alert, would not be on anyone's nice list next Christmas.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
The Yam'rii were a species of sentient insectoids native to the densely forested planet Huk out in wild space, from which they also got their second denomination, the Huk. Huk, as it turns out, was a Kalish slur for soulless bug, the reasons for which will become apparent later on. They were actually distantly related to the verpine and, like many other insectoids, were gonochoric, that is, they had distinct male and female sexes. As a species, the Yam'rii were pretty large, standing at over 2 meters tall. Their thin bodies were divided into 3 segments: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen, which was supported by 2 spindly legs. They resembled giant praying mantes with large multifaceted eyes, thin bodies, bumpy exoskeletons known as carapaces, and pointy feet. Some members actually had pupil-like marks on their giant eyeballs, but most just had the insectoid grey or red eyes. At the base of their wedge-shaped head was a group of bump-like protrusions that served as a mouth. In some members, this could open wide to reveal sharp white teeth. A sharp ridge also ran along the back of their heads. Their heads connected to their thorax with a long, thin neck. The standard for Yam'rii was for the neck and the thorax to both be diamond-shaped, the sharper edges facing forwards and backwards, although some members had raised bumps where the sharp edges would normally be. Attached to the thorax were their 2 arms, which featured 2 variations. One variation of the Yam'rii actually had large, scissor-like forearms that could be used to slice something or someone up, while the other variation had 2 fingers and a thumb in place of the clipper-like claws, which allowed them to actually hold and manipulate objects. Their arms could grow so long they would drag on the ground as they walked. The thorax was connected to the large, bulbous abdomen at a very narrow waist. Their legs were single-jointed and ended in pointy feet. In those Yam'rii that had fingers instead of shears, these feet were bifurcated into 2 pointed toes. And finally, these bugs were encapsulated in a grey, brown, or green carapace from head to toe, over which they wore minimal clothing, like skirts or belts with pockets. In case the scissor hands wasn't enough of a clue, the Yam'rii were predators. Like praying mantises in our world, they were stealthy predators that lived for meat and eggs. In fact, they were totally down for chowing down on eggs from other species and even on their own kind. Also like praying mantises, they were known to have a quick temper. But a quick temper alone wasn't the reason they got their name. On the surface, Yam'rii society was surprisingly well structured. They were technologically advanced, having become hyperspace capable some time ago. They also used droids for many day-to-day tasks. In fact, if you're longtime fans, you'll have heard us talking about the Industrial Automaton's LOM series protocol droid, which was given insectoid features and an incessant droning voice that many humanoids found insufferable. These insect-like droids were specifically designed for species like the Yam'rii or their distant cousins, the verpine. But technologically advanced doesn't mean they had much in the way of social graces. As we've already mentioned, they had an appetite for arguments and other species' eggs. This was such an intense hunger that, if a Yam'rii was ever near a creche of an egg-laying species, like the Kuar Sav, the eggs' caretakers would have to be constantly vigilant to make sure the Yam'rii didn't start chowing down. If that weren't enough, they also lusted after the property of others. All these personality traits didn't make for a particularly pleasant species, as you can imagine, which leads us to the main reason we wanted to talk about the Yam'rii in the first place: their extensive experience with waging war against other species. In the beginning, it wasn't so bad. Around 1000 BBY, the Yam'rii made contact with the galaxy and became hyperspace capable. They quickly formed ties with the Galactic Republic and became important trade partners with the Trade Federation. In order to have greater bargaining and trade power, the Yam'rii decided they needed better access to natural resources like minerals and ores that they could barter with, and thus they sent off colonizers to nearby worlds. Their first colonies were on Abaji and Tovalskal, which they exploited heavily for their resources. As we mentioned earlier, they had a lust for stuff that didn't belong to them, and so they exploited these worlds with no regard for the beings that already lived on them. Something we didn't mention is that Huk was located near the Kali system, which contained its namesake world of Kali, home to the Kalish, aka General Grievous's people. Around 60 BBY, the Yam'rii landed on Kali and began gathering whatever they could. Kali, however, was not naturally rich in resources, so with not much to show for their gathering, the Yam'rii chose to exploit something else, the Kalish themselves. Kalish were taken captive and enslaved, then sold by the millions on the galactic market. As you can imagine, the Kalish didn't like that. Decades before the Clone Wars, the people of Kali rose up and fought back against their oppressors in what would become known as the Huk War. For 2 generations, the Yam'rii tried to suppress the insurgents who fought back ferociously. It was during this war that the term Huk became a local slur, not that we blame the Kalish. As the war progressed, it began tipping in the Kalish's favor. The Kalish scored key victories at important locations, like at Trupak, their holiest temple. Talented new resistance leaders took up the mantle of war leaders, among them Kaimen Jai Shalal and Rondro Lij Kumar. Shilal in particular gave the Yam'rii a run for their money, and soon the insectoids were on the defensive. The Yam'rii managed to earn a brief respite when they killed Kumar by the shores of the Jinawa Sea and drove Shilal into hiding. However, Shilal soon returned, now going by the name of Grievous. He was joined by 8 elite warlords, the Izvoshra, and together they united their people in a pan-Kali army known as the Kolk Pravas. His forces killed the Yam'rii by the thousands. Faced with such staggering losses, the Yam'rii decided to call it quits and abandon Kali. Grievous, however, was not satisfied. In a vindictive surge, the Kali tore their way through the Yam'rii's neighboring colonies, using the technology they had left behind. They won battle after battle and liberated many colonies, eliminating every single Yam'rii they encountered. Grievous led the way all the way to Huk itself, which was overrun by Kalish in no time. When even Tovaskal was overrun and their numbers were rapidly diminishing, the Yam'rii suddenly realized they were looking extinction in the eye, and it wasn't blinking first. In response, the Yam'rii reached out to their Trade Federation allies and asked them to get the Republic to intervene. After many under-the-table deals, the Republic decided to step in. 50 Jedi were dispatched to mediate a settlement. The Yam'rii claimed the Kalish were the instigators and had attacked first. The Senate, corrupt as ever, pulled strings that ensured the Jedi believed them. As a result, the Jedi took the Kalish off, making them return the colonies they had taken and going so far as to force them to pay war reparations and impose sanctions. Many of those gifted Kalish leaders were put on trial, and the Huk War ended with a Yam'rii victory. With gleeful vengeance, the Yam'rii reclaimed their colonies, destroying anything the Kalish had built, including holy grounds. The Kalish, yet again, begged the Republic to put an end to this desecration, but the Republic backed the Yam'rii once more. Of course, a direct consequence of the Huk War was General Grievous developing a very deep and understandable hatred for the Jedi Order and the corrupt Galactic Republic that sicked them on innocent people. Later on, Grievous would revisit the Yam'rii colony on Tovaskal, now the commander of the droid army, and wipe every Mantis out. For a long time after, Huk wasn't involved in the galaxy's political struggles. In 17 ABY, the Yam'rii joined the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances. In 36 ABY, when the Dark Nest crisis broke out in wild space, followed by the Swarm War, the Yam'rii were invited by the Killiks to join forces with them, overthrow the government, and take on the Galactic Alliance. Ultimately, however, the Killiks were defeated and pushed back. Following the resolution of the conflict, the Yam'rii were once again left to their own devices, which, if you ask us, was probably for the best. So, What do you think of this delightful species? Do you agree with our assessment, or do you think the Yam'rii had better qualities the galaxy just didn't want to see? Would you like a longer video detailing the Huck War and the Galactic Republic's deep corruption? Let us know all your thoughts and more in the comment section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.